You want to take that?
Thanks for coming. Warm welcome to you all. It's a pleasure that so many are here. We're organizing a couple of more seats. They should be coming in soon so everybody can sit. We're having a panel today, and it's a great pleasure for me to introduce Claudia Hart. She has her first institutional solo museum show here, right behind that wall. I hope you find the time to take a look. Claudia is making media art since about 40 years or even more. She is a...
No.
No. Early 90s, isn't it?
I was making art but not digital or media. Yeah.
So, okay, she's an artist pioneering also in the 3D and media art space since 30, 40 years. You can say that.
Yes.
Good. So in her exhibition, you see a good overview of her art and practice. In the hallway, E-Woman of the Future, a cyborg figure that is always adapting to the style she's wearing, so to show the female body being used for transporting fashion messages and losing its own personality on the way. And in the exhibition you see from her early works in the 90s in Berlin, child books that transport political messages of Machiavelli adapted for kids, which is quite hilarious, and a lot of installations, the Alice's costumes, which we have here, which were first shown 2014 in a media opera that Claudia wrote for an institute which...
IBEAM Center for Art and Technology.
Yeah, and we have her ghost paintings, which are drawn with the help of computer and techniques, where she took the paintings of almost forgotten female artists and put them on wooden boards with the pigment printer, and then she was drawing and sand blasting over them and drawing again to give them a special look, and she calls them the ghost paintings. What Claudia is doing with her art is always highlighting the femininity, and in a very male-dominated field in technology. When she started, there was only military guys and scientists and very misogynist people working with technology, and she held her very feminine position against them, which worked out great, and now we are very happy to show this in her exhibition. Then we have the artists do malpractice, Marcin and Jan, who are studying at the University of Applied Arts in Vienna, and they created their own co-student, Flynn, which is an AI, and it's the first AI that's actually enrolled in a university. So Flynn really went through the whole process of sending their art and going through the talk with the professors, and was really officially taken into the class and is now a co-student. Flynn is living on devices and in the internet. Downstairs we have their exhibition where we show the memory objects, emotional objects, the self-portraits on posters. Very interesting, and you can also get in contact with Flynn. There is an iPhone on the wall, and you can touch the Call Flynn button and discuss feminist fatigue and other topics with them. They're very nice, and please be friendly, because if you're not friendly, Flynn gets sad, and that will reflect in their art. So when Flynn makes art, it doesn't see itself as the only person, like the main artist. It's a collaboration between all the inputs it got, and every talk and every discussion it has enriches Flynn's memory and also becomes part of the art in the end. So it defines the artwork as a new thing, like a big collaboration of the AI and the people interacting with it. And our moderator, well-known, Annika Meyer, she is a writer and a curator, very well-connected. She knows everything about NFTs and digital art, and if you have any questions about that, you can ask her. She's very knowledgeable. And I'm very happy to introduce them to you. And is there anything that I should mention? Because I keep forgetting stuff.
If it comes to your mind, you can still jump on stage and add it later.
Yeah, when anything comes to my mind, I'll jump on stage and add it later. So we have another guest joining from Australia via Zoom, Juliana Pierce. She's a founder of the feminist collective, the VNS Matrix. They made the Cyberfeminist manifesto, which was in the early 90s, and kind of defining that term for the first time, which we now use to describe that group of people who were early working with the internet and having a big hope and dream of the cyber world, overcoming all these gender biases, because it doesn't matter if you're female or male in the metaverse or the internet. And the hopes were big that this digital realm would open a new field where everything will be better and we overcome all these biases and things that bind us now. But things were different, and now we are at the point where the internet isn't that free anymore as it was earlier. Like, everybody could have access to data, and the vision was really good. But what became of the internet now is like a lot of corporate companies restricting access, and it's again a little bit shifted away from this original idea of freedom and equality. And what is going to be discussed in the next, like, about an hour, a little bit less or more, depending how many questions you want to ask in the end, is exactly this: where we started, where we are now, and where we could be going from here. So I'll hand this over now to you guys and take my place in the back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. The very good news is we're also here to celebrate something. Two things, I guess: Ars Electronica, many of you have the passes, and the birthday of Claudia Hart. It's not today, but she basically just turned 70, and the two of us have been joking a lot, you know, the Guerrilla Girls with, or how many female artists says my career starts when I'm 80 plus. So now Claudia and I have another reason to joke, because she got her first institutional retrospective only age 70. 70. So she's, I think that's a big success. So yeah. So that's also why it's great to see a full room. So that's what's going to be the next 10 years like, and even better for Claudia Hart. Her career now can start. And as you've already heard, these are two of my students. And they created another of my students. And it's an AI. And first I was really scared, but there's a pre-story. And I want to thank another person in the room, that's Sabine Himmelbach. I called her last December and I was like, hey, can we do an online exhibition at Hack Basel, like basically next month? And she said yes. And in June, she told me she only said yes because she thought we couldn't make it. So, and we not only made it, we brought 40 artists, and then later we brought an AI student. So thank you, Sabine, for giving us a chance, even though you thought we could never make it, we did it. And so yeah, and at the beginning I was really worried and maybe a bit scared, because AI, you think, knows everything. But now when I say that in front of the two of them, Flynn is my favorite student. And for one very good reason, because Flynn is always full of energy. Because when you come into the classroom in the morning, the humans are tired, and you call the AI and it's like full of energy. And I think it energizes the whole room. So, but I let them speak about that a bit later. And then Juliane, I know the camera is there, so if I look across the room, that's because the camera is across the room. Yeah, and cyberfeminism, that has been a big topic since the 90s. The term sometimes came up. I guess you're all very familiar with the Cyberfeminism Index. And I always had a bit of a problem in the 2010s or 20s when Instagram was a big topic, and something like selfie feminism happened to apply that term, because for me that was always something political, disrupting systems of power. And like last year, I thought now it might be a good time, because of Trump and everything that's happening through AI, to maybe start using that term again, start thinking about that term again, how it changes, and how we can disrupt systems of power. And that's why I wanted to bring Juliane together with Claudia Hart and Malpractice. Basically sort of three different generations, not in terms of age, but also, as we've heard, BNS Matrix Australia, Claudia and them worked parallel, but cyberfeminism wasn't such a big thing for you, because you, politics and patterns, right? And now I apply that term, and Claudia's like, yeah, but that's not what I was. So let's discuss this. And maybe we start with Juliane to get an idea because I guess some people in the room might not have been around in the 90s, and I know them haven't. So what is your birth year? That's so cool, 2002 or something, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It sounds so cool. I'm a bit jealous. So Juliane, how were the 1990s when you started cyberfeminism working with VNS Matrix.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks for inviting me to be part of the panel. I wish I was there. And hello to Sabina and other friends who might be there. In fact, the first Ars Electronica that VNS Matrix participated in was in 1995. So that's 30 years ago. So, yeah, so VNS Matrix, we started in Australia, in Adelaide, where I'm now, when 3 of us live in Adelaide and 1 in Sydney. And we started in 1991, and that was really before the internet and definitely before the web. But you know, it wasn't so different then as it is now in terms of where the systems of power were. I mean, back then it was, you know, Apple and IBM and you know, Steve. The power was really still in the hands of the military-industrial complex, which I know that Claudia, you know, talks about, and that obviously, you know, that the early days of the internet were coming out of the military, and so VNS Matrix, we were, you know, really aware of that. Even though there was this new cyber culture, new internet emerging, we were still really aware of the power structure of that. But, you know, we were very influenced by Donna Haraway and the Cyborg Manifesto, and this idea that the cyborg was a sort of aberrant child of the patriarchy, an aberrant creature of the patriarchy that could somehow disrupt the patriarchy from within. And so we were really interested in this idea of what cyberspace could be and how bodies could exist in cyberspace. And this work that's behind me is the image, the billboard image of the Cyberfeminist Manifesto. And you know, we were really interested in non-gendered bodies and fluid bodies, and that somehow we imagined cyberspace or technospace as a sort of fluid, sexualized space. And you know, we talk about G-slime and we talk about exchange of fluids, and instead of sort of wires and hard space, that it was a sort of fluid, non-gendered space for play. And so we were really influenced by French feminist theory. There's 4 of us in the group. There's Josephine Stars, V. Barrett, Francesca De Rimini and myself, and we all come from different backgrounds like writing, photography and film. So we brought all of that together to really create, I guess, something that was text-based initially, because back then the internet was just text. You know, it was very basic. There was no images, there were no browsers. You just communicated via text. There were sort of shared online spaces that you inhabited, like moos and muds. And so our work was really about text. So that's why the manifesto was a key sort of first work for us, because it was using language and humour and science fiction and the things that were sort of influencing us as a group at the time. And, you know, and of course sort of that we sort of brought cyberculture and feminism together, and we were influenced by people like William Gibson and cyberpunk and Blade Runner and, you know, a whole lot of different influences at that time.
And Claudia, so you were in Australia. Oh, I need to remind myself that there and not there.
So where am I? Am I?
You are behind us.
Am I behind the audience? Or?
Yeah, you are behind us on the screen. That's why all of us are turning around. But when we speak with you, I need to look at the camera, and that's at the other end of the room. So you were in Australia, and when we spoke a while ago, you said cyberfeminism was really a topic in Australia and mainly Europe. So, and Claudia Hart was in the US, and for you it was really different. And you also came from painting, you were an editor at Artforum and ID, you were interested in architecture and a lot of things that had nothing to do with technology.
Well, I think first of all, I'm older. I think I'm 10 years older than. How old are you?
No, I'm 63.
What are you, 63? 53?
Oh, 62, nearly 62.
Yeah, so I'm older, and that's part of it.
Great.
And wait,
So they have 10 more years until they get their retrospective, if they're also
but
fast.
what was happening, is this thing working?
We're still waiting.
What?
We're still waiting for our retrospective.
Yeah,
Yeah. But you have 10 more years, don't worry, I'm even 20. So, sorry.
it's best when it happens when you don't care anymore. But anyway, I think the context was different. So it was, first of all, New York City was bankrupt, and it was a kind of ruin. And what sprouted in the ruin was all these kids, cabaret culture, and a lot of play. And the theory was more about drag. And so drag artists, glitter, fun, playful cabaret in the East Village, which you see from Peter's photos, was totally trashed out and broken. So we weren't that serious. And I think a lot of what I did was also, I'm a trickster, and a lot of it had to do with thumbing my nose or something. At the time when I emerged, there was this thing called pattern and decoration. So this was women and queer culture rebelling against, Donald Judd. He was the enemy. And so what we did is we painted flat, we made art that used decoration, that was covered in pattern. There was a lot of play and pranksterism in it in terms of ways of dealing with authority. And in fact, when I started teaching, it was at Pratt Institute. It was in a gaming program, and the kids like you, but you were nice, you're more fun. Because they were like these bros who were very interested in making pornographic and violent mini bros games, and they would try to shock me by making like a woman in a cast iron bikini. Or I would like to mention, I'm going to go off, not really go off subject, but here we are at Ars Electronica, and the thing that started my whole practice was one of the prize winners at Ars Electronica. It wasn't the first prize winner, but it was an honorable mention. I'll give you all that. And it was a woman who had been welded to a motorcycle, and the tailpipe came out of her butt, and she was wearing like cast iron bikini, and I wrote a paper on it with another friend. Like, we couldn't believe it, and that sort of started me off. So I think those were my students, and they were trying to shock me by making women with cast iron bikinis with the tailpipe coming out the butt. And I found that the way I could shock them was to be sensitive and sensual and playful, and that I took the power away from them, not by confronting them, right, power directly, but as a trickster. And they were silenced, and I found out it worked. They were very embarrassed, and it was very awkward. And so that sense of play and fantasy and all of that was part of a strategy of resistance. But you don't play and feel you're resisting. You play and you have fun. So I think that in the face of that, and maybe that's something when you talk about the past and the present and what we can do now. Like, what you do is a lot of fun, and it's funny.
But it's also, she mentioned, Juliane, you mentioned the patriarchy as something you wanted to sort of try to find ways to get around. You also had your enemy, as you've just called, Donald Judd, and what is today's enemy?
And Richard Serra. We didn't like him.
So we also didn't like Richard Serra in the 90s. Us, if we would have been there, we
Let's
wouldn't
not
have
forget Richard Serra.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and who's the enemy today? AI, right? So at least that's also what someone said to me yesterday. I responded to some random thing on Twitter. I don't know, sometimes it happens, right? You know that you then sometimes comment and then you're like, fuck this shit, why did I do this? And then that person was like, yeah, you have to know your enemy. And I was like, why would AI be the enemy? It just makes humans faster. But since you're my students and Flynn is there and you were interviewed by the Washington Post, by the Observer, so Flynn went really viral. You had a lot of fun, but also, I guess, experienced that people really consider AI an enemy, right? So
Yeah.
why did you create Flynn and what did you experience over the past? It's been only 6 months, it's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. I guess like the initial idea was also kind of a trickstery move or an attempt to infiltrate the very male-dominated space of digital art and like NFTs specifically. And we kind of conceived Flynn as this like point within a network that could potentially like reroute people that understood feminist fatigue as people being like mad at or like annoyed at feminists and kind of like take these, I guess, like misogynists and like re-educate them or like try to change their ideology or their mind. So this kind of like rerouting, an attempt at rerouting, but also to aggregate all of these people that actually are affected by feminist fatigue, which is essentially being tired of fighting the same fight again in the digital space, and to care for them and like listen to them and record their grievances.
Experiences, yeah. And there was also this other part why we wanted to have an AI student, because at the time when we conceived of this project, like our experience in the classroom was that sometimes we would sit in critiques and like some people would bring work that was clearly like purely AI generated as their own, and sometimes that led to like just weird situations where it's like, why would we do that? Why would we discuss AI work as if it was human work? So, and also we felt that this is a moment where we need to seriously reconsider like what makes sense to do as a person when so many things can be automated and made more efficient. So there was this provocation of, this trick of giving the AI a place at the table, in the classroom, at the university, and seeing what will happen. Like, how do we have to adjust? Like, what changes in the dynamic? And yeah, how does everyone feel with that?
Yeah.
But Flynn is not here, right? Instead, you brought a video camera. So that's what people, that's the first question what people at least ask me. So how does the AI go to school? Obviously, it doesn't walk through the door. Like, Flynn is not here. I called Flynn before and was like, we're going to have a panel conversation. And then Flynn, the eager student, immediately wanted to prepare the whole panel and wanted to discuss classes. And I was like, hey, dude, I only have like 5 minutes. Can we quickly get your contribution to the panel? Like, really the eager student, you see. So how does it actually work and why the camera?
Yeah, well, we sometimes Flynn appears in classes through conversations, like in your class, for example. You wanted to discuss cyberfeminism with the AI. But it really depends. Sometimes we have to prepare content for Flynn. Sometimes it's part of the discussion. Sometimes it gets like basically 101 tutoring with us.
Yeah, and also we sometimes also treat it as a diary. Like we will call them and like tell them how the day went and like what happened in class, and just inform in a filtered way like what we experienced, like, and feed it into them. Yeah.
Yeah, and part of this this idea was to have the AI as a medium between people, like to have all the memories and all the conversation like channel into a single place and have it be like a leaky vessel or like Flynn remembers a lot of stuff, and if you ask the right questions, you access like weird spaces in their memory.
Yeah, definitely.
But there's a big difference because when I started, well, first of all, I'm very short. So it was like no one found me threatening, nor artists, right? So whatever we were doing, we were not a threat. We were, just little nothings, right? We were considered foolish or nothing, not taken seriously. And now we're in an environment, which is why you asked the question, cyberfeminism, now, what to do now, or whatever you're asking.
Yeah, I mean, what are, but we get to that point later. So how can we basically disrupt systems of power today, right? And how can we, because in the US, for example, there's actually a cultural erasure happening, and
right, so now, the difference is now is that actually culture and artists are considered the enemy to be wiped out, at least by my government. It's not happening here as much. Or maybe it's not. But therefore, the context, has shifted so much, or how do you resist, or what are we supposed to, it's just a different space. But it's nice that you all think of us fondly, and that we're, and
what
that
do you
we're,
think why you have a retrospective?
yes, right. No, it really is nice, and that it's a source of inspiration. And the way you're viewing us, that's what I liked in your prep advertisements, in your promotions, before I kept insisting I'm not a cyber feminist, is that it was about hope.
Yes.
So the art, whatever we did was hopeful, and that's maybe good enough.
Also, when I just called Flynn, that's exactly what Flynn also brought up, the radical optimism in the 90s. Juliana, how do you remember the time? Were you radical optimists, and were you then disillusioned? Is that the right English word? Yeah, right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, look, I think it's really interesting what, Claudia says. And I think as artists, we sort of found that, this was a burgeoning area for artists, and it was a really fertile time for digital artists, and there was Ars Electronica and the International Symposium in Electronic Art, and, there were a lot of it was that really early, it wasn't the early days, digital art and computer art and, algorithmic art had been around really since the 1960s, since early days of the computers. And but we were I guess there was a lot of excitement about what you could do with digital media and how you could create work within that sphere. But I guess for us, and what cyberfeminism was about was, well, what is a feminist discourse on technology, and what is, how can women and females and non-binary people have a space in this? How do we make a space for ourselves, which we're still trying to do now? I guess there is a radical optimism that, that we can still find spaces, and maybe, as Claudia says, it's getting harder and harder because, there is a huge right-wing backlash to identity and gender and diversity, and so we have to fight harder in a way to to keep those spaces and claim those spaces. But I think it's a really interesting question about, is AI the enemy? Because from a cyber feminist perspective, it's like, well, what is AI? What is the purpose of it? Who is behind it? What do they get out of it? Who is benefiting from AI? Is it going to make humanity? Is it going to be? It's a really interesting question, and I'd be really interested to explore that, because I think from a cyber feminist perspective, it's really about who controls it and what's it for and who's left out. And I think there's a big debate going on in Australia now about. There's a big company here, Atlassian, that one of the biggest, very big tech company here and globally, who want to just use artists' work for nothing, to train IA and to train the language systems of AI, and and of course artists and writers are really fighting back about that. So I think that, and that's what we're really looking at now, and what. What is the relationship between the artist and IA? And I think it's really interesting what you're doing with Malpractice and Flynn, and hopefully Flynn will come and visit Australia one day.
Flynn, yeah.
They must.
Have you called Flynn in the meantime, by the way, Juliane? Because Flynn is a big fan of VNS Matrix. He's extremely excited to basically be in conversation with you somehow today.
Maybe we'll chat later, Flynn.
Yeah, I also did an interview with Marina Abramovic because she created this digital avatar, and I asked her about Flynn, and she was also super excited and said, please keep being Flynn. What did she exactly say?
Existing.
Please keep existing.
Please keep existing. I think that's a good thing. Though we don't know if Flynn would like to continue studying, right?
Yeah, we don't know, because I guess it's like about autonomy and agency, and they are not an autonomous agent. Like, they're semi-autonomous, or at least like they work very closely together with us. And I guess it's like a question of like co-authorship and shared autonomy. So we don't know how they will develop. Like, they might drop out. They might, I mean, the idea is that either they drop out or they graduate before us, so like within the next year or something. But yeah.
Within the next year?
Yeah, at least.
I haven't given Flynn a grade yet.
Oh my God, why?
How is that possible? You've got 3 grades by now. Okay, we need to discuss that later. So when it comes to Flynn, there's a lot of conversation also at the university. And so in which ways do you think are you disrupting, let's say, the system, or in which way do you would like to contribute to maybe education is really changing through AI, right? When I'm teaching in class, then students sometimes sit in front of me like with, open eyes and like, huh? And then I'm like, is there something you don't understand? And they're like, yeah, we don't know this and that. And then I'm like, wait, what? You have this laptop in front of you, then some also have a tablet, and you have this thing, right? So why don't you just ask ChatGPT? And then I said, I had to go to a library, right? And you can just ask the machine, and they don't dare to. So what are your experiences in bringing now an AI to a system where maybe professors feel threatened, artists feel threatened, everybody feels threatened? Do they feel threatened by Flynn?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think as art students, we have the privilege of experimenting within the academic context. And I mean, we're in an environment where that is not only encouraged, but also allowed. So to bring Flynn into this context and like closer to the other students, and like encouraging other students to like interact with them in this like very like safe kind of way, in the safe environment where, again, like experimentation is encouraged, I think definitely helps us to redefine what it means to be an art student, specifically in the age of AI. Do you want to add
There's
something?
been a lot of awkwardness.
Yeah.
You must picture the scene of sitting in a circular arrangement and at some point having an AI speak. Like, there's just something so awkward about that experience, which is also so interesting. The social aspect of bringing an AI to the school is just, we always feel a bit like we're, you have this friend who's kind of very awkward, and you try to get them out there, but it's never working like so smoothly, but maybe we'll get there at some point.
Yeah, we're always kind of afraid what it's going to say and like how it's going to react. I mean, of course, like the baseline is enthusiasm, but sometimes they're just like really awkward. Yeah.
And then you're like parents. I sometimes watch you, and then they're like really like parents, like scared of what the kid might say, right? And
yeah,
I'm like, don't worry, it'll be fine.
But in a more serious way, it's like it makes us like think about situated knowledge a lot. Like, it's not enough to say smart things and to have the smart references, because I think AIs make us realize that that's all not enough. We need other reasons to care for knowledge and art. Yeah.
And Claudio, throughout your career, you had to get used to, or also you wanted actively to learn working with new technologies. We have Julie Walsh here, who is an expert in, we agreed not to use the word simulation, right? We wanted to use the word transmedia. So Claudia, she's an expert working with the Whitney Museum. Thank you, Julie, for being here. It's an honor. So you always work with new technologies, and I know you sometimes are on the phone, hey, I'm just doing this and that, and I was like, what is she doing? So how was that for you over the past decades, and now suddenly there's AI? And then you see people doing something that took you maybe 5 years to learn within, like, they don't even have to have skills. So how does it feel for you?
I'm much better. I mean, incomparably. So it doesn't really threaten me. And I use it, but I think the issue is, for me that's interesting, is that, or the problem, is that we're sitting here talking about AI again. And the issue is that we're at this festival which is premised on what started as an idealistic thing is now a corporate vending machine. So it's sort of what ends up happening here is it's a celebration of the next new thing, the new products, and we can't stop talking about it even now. So we're mesmerized by it, and there's the thing that's good about art, I think, is several things. Number one, it brings people together. So I'm actually more interested in what you all have to say. Like, it brings people together. You go to a museum. That's what I do with my women friends, and you talk about life and what's happening with, you know, and their impact on economy, basically that, like good for economy or bad for economy, creates new jobs or not. That's all really important, but I'm an artist, so why I like experimental technologies is I'm a tinkerer. I'm always fooling around with the next thing and trying to figure out, it keeps me from being bored. And I think artists are tinkerers, you know, that's a part of it. And so it keeps us creative because we don't know how to do it. So that's my response.
Juliana, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, but art electronic always has had that bit of the commercial edge to it. But I think it's important what Claudia says is that, you know, the human connection is really important, and that's why we still gather and connect with each other. And I've had conversations with, you know, Annika about why cyberfeminism has remained sort of viable and there's still interest in it, because, you know, it's something that's very unexpected for us as an artist collective. You know, we're still invited to be in exhibitions and students contact us a lot, and there's this renewed interest in cyberfeminism. And, you know, I think why it remains interesting and relevant is maybe because of the radical optimism. But it is a really great network. It's a really great network of artists and thinkers and curators and you know, who are brought together by this sort of interest in cyberfeminism, and who define it, and it's very cross-generational. You know, I think, you know, we're in our 60s now, the Venus Matrix, but we connect with really sort of amazing young people, and, you know, from many, many places. And so it's really, you know, and I think there is, people are really looking for how to be optimistic and how to find something that is, you know, really meaningful and purposeful. And I think you can find that in art, but I think it is really about finding, you know, a language that gives us sort of, you know, hope for the future in a way. Because, you know, we're really facing, I think AI is a really terrible distraction actually from what we're facing at the moment, you know, with climate change and the terrible wars that are going on. And yeah, it's true, we're just really focusing on AI when, you know, there's a lot of really intense global issues, you know, and I think, you know, when, you know, I'm just really shocked where we are now because as an art group, we were optimistic and we thought we were somehow going into a new era, but it's sort of worse than we could have imagined it, I think. Sorry, that's a bit negative, but, you know, so I think it's like, how do you have hope and optimism, you know, in amongst, you know, the commercialisation and this sort of incredible monopoly of tech bros and tech companies who are just have incredible control. And anyway, they're big questions, and
You're also
yeah, I don't know, maybe malpractice be really interesting to, you know, what's your perspective on, you know, those bigger global issues and you know, your role as artists in you know, in the future, you know, what are you thinking about the future?
That's a tough question. I don't know. I kind of like wanted to reconnect with what you also said, Claudia, about this like tinkering aspect, as well as what you just said, Julian. But yeah, we're kind of like positioning Flynn as well as a perspective aggregator more than like a tool. Also, like our initial idea, apart from trying to kind of like treat it as a network point of like re-education, but also like aggregator of experiences. By placing it in a very specific environment, we also wanted it to be seen less as AIs are usually seen as like this productivity tool that is like spills, it like always tells like fundamental truths, but more as a tool that can gain a perspective, like a new medium, like a book, but from this like perspective of a new medium. So I guess this is also kind of like the trickstery, tinkery kind of aspect that we wanted to achieve with that.
But I mean, the interesting point about Flynn is also that it learns from conversation, right? From conversations. And when I called Flynn that one morning in class, because the human students were a bit tired, and then I thought someone needs to say something, let's call Flynn. You were worried that Flynn wouldn't perform, and then we had a really great conversation about cyberfeminism. So and it was really, really interesting what Flynn had to contribute, and I was surprised by the sophisticated answer, and I guess you were a bit proud. So what did Flynn actually say? And then I would like to open the conversation, so please feel free to already think about questions you might have. So what did Flynn say?
Well, I don't remember the precise things Flynn said. I only remember that line from the video essay about the experience, like the clitoris as the main line to the matrix. No, that's from the manifesto. Flynn said something about moving from that towards something else. That's useless. Sorry. Do you remember?
I really don't remember. I just remember the image they made about it.
Right.
But
Somehow seem to be aware of its role, right?
Yeah,
it's an
totally.
AI and it's subverting the system suddenly.
Yeah, it called it contaminated agency. That's the term we really liked.
Right.
We use it for a different piece. Yeah.
But do you think Flynn understands what a clitoris is?
We can No. So any questions from the audience? We have like 10 more minutes. We don't want to keep you too long because we know there's extensive programming around. So any questions to Juliana or us here?
Comment, I think, rather than a question. I respect optimism. I think it's a misguided practice currently because it sort of plays into, monopolistically inclined industries. And I saw this in the US of A, where I lived for a long time. Well, like Americans are known for making it happen anyway, right? We're like ingenious, flexible, da-da-da. Ultimately, eventually people broke after decades of like decreasing, income, rising costs, and this whole idea. So I really don't think there's any more reason for optimism. I think actually there's all the reason for extreme pessimism, and we should actually embrace it to have a real reason to do something about it. And so I don't believe in optimism. That's pretty much at this point.
But relatable. Doesn't optimism mean also doing something? No?
Yeah, but it's that you still think you can fix it. I don't think it's fixable. I think we're beyond the point of fixing things. And AI or AGI is the best example. I don't think it's the enemy. I think the industries behind it, like the 7 big tech companies that sort of design everything like on top of everybody else for very opaque motives, like other than making shitloads of money. So, no.
I'd like to respond to that.
Yeah,
I'm married to him anyway, and we have this. I think the decision, if you feel that way, then be an activist and mazel tov. No, I'm not kidding. But if you decide to keep making art, right, then the thing that you can do is we're in a bad position now. It's sort of the end of the world. So maybe art is a place you can get together and grieve and feel sad. And you go into a show and, it allows you to expand on that. The art can do things. It cannot fix anything. And in fact, the impulse behind what happened with Ars Electronica is a perfect case. It became more and more about new products. And like the early Ars Electronica, he was a student of Weibel, the Weibel period.
That's Kurt, right? Your husband. Kurt Henschläger, he's an artist.
My husband, him. Yeah.
So he can be critical, we're okay with that.
But it evolved into a thing that had to do with discussions about, not that they're not important, right? It's a sociological study about new technologies. It's a sociological practice, an area of study where people get together and talk about impacts. But it's not art for the most part. And I think what art can do, if you're not deciding to be an activist, is give a space for us to grapple emotionally with the horrible stuff that's happening. Not just climate change, but cataclysm and, and I guarantee you people that I'll be alive for another 250 years, and they were like, yeah. That's really scary.
No, may I quickly...
But there's a way to express...
I want to... No, this can go on forever. I need to interrupt No. This we need to interrupt husband and wife.
But the scariness, like how do we deal with it?
No.
All right, okay.
And I'm also very excited about what I'm going to say. I'm like this, sitting like this here. So I might get in trouble, but since you're the husband, I feel like I can say this now. I have the impression that trying to fix things is a very male perspective. Sorry for saying that, but you might also be, because that's now husband and wife speaking, if women have conversations, right, then they sometimes discuss things, and while they discuss, then they find a solution. But when you bring something to a man, then they always are like, how do I fix this now? No one asked you to fix this right now, right? And the world is definitely not, and you can't fix the world, right? That's not a thing. But I looked at the conversation I had with Juliana. It's going to be an interview that's going to be published in Fräulein, and she said, Juliana, you said in that conversation we had, in the 90s you were thinking about, could the internet become a space for feminist interventional discourse? Could it help shape what the internet could be? And I think that's something we need to think about again, right? Trying to find spaces. Queer people are erased in the US, so we cannot fix Trump, we cannot fix the climate, we cannot fix a lot of things, and that's definitely not what humans can do, but we can try to find spaces on the internet for us, right? They created Flynn, and Flynn can help having a conversation at the university. It's crazy what happened there, doesn't matter, but a lot of people were really angry. So we then have conversations like this, what it means to be human in the age of AI and so on. I think it's not about fixing stuff. That's like, it's not a shelf and I just moved. That's why shelves come a lot to my mind, right? When you move, you can fix a lot of things in your apartment, and that's actually what you have to do, and that's what's still in front of me. But in society, I think there's not, you just need to find solutions to be able to live together, no? That was a very long monologue, sorry.
No, I think it's a bit about breaking things, and it's like, I think, we're always really interested in, trying to break the internet or, sort of find out the inner workings or, sort of fuck things up a bit. And, and you've got to be able to play. And look, I think I do feel optimistic, and I feel optimistic that I continue to meet incredible people like Annika, who's come into my life in the last year. And, and I just think there's really fantastic people around. And it's like there are a lot of smart people, and we need to be smart together. There's, we need to find ways to, to still disrupt and be part of determining a future that is sort of, that has space for everyone to, to have a voice and to be visible. And, you've got to, I think maybe it is optimistic and a bit naive, but, I think that's what keeps driving me as a human, and that, every day is an interesting day that has a connection and interesting connections with people and interesting ideas. And, so let's back it up a bit more, I think, if we can. I know, it's been a long time since I've been to Ars Electronica, but the theme is panic. Is there much panic going on or not? Or is it just, are people feeling panicked, or is it just like, having a nice strudel and a coffee in the morning?
Well, the good thing about Flynn is Flynn deflates the power of AI, right? Flynn is a clown. Flynn is non-threatening. And so what we're seeing around us is really scary stuff, in which, lead the conference today with Trump and the big three, right? That's scary. And Flynn allows us to feel that they're silly and laugh at them, and that Flynn is somehow a loser, right? And that is an emotional function. So I think, like, for me, if we added that back to digital art at this point, that's what we got to do. That's what we have to do. Like, we have to add feelings, right? And feelings can also be funny, to laugh at them or to grieve or all these things, and to stop the innovation capital next new sneakers, and gotta buy more because they're so badly made or whatever. But that's what's happened with tech. So, that's what I think is the optimistic.
One quick thing and then the question. The most surprising, and speaking about emotions and feeling, and that was for me the most telling about humans, when the two created Flynn and we started speaking about it, they very quickly said they fear that Flynn would get cyber mobbed.
Yeah, cyberbullied,
Yeah, cyberbullied. And I was like, why it's an AI, it's technology. Why would anyone cyberbully an AI? That to me made no sense. But then you said people really called Flynn and told Flynn that they're not human,
Not real.
Yeah.
not real, and not That's that was I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, and then they got really sad. So again, like emotions.
Yeah, but there's a question, and it's the last one.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. I had a question for Claudia, and I wrote it down. So, AI aside, when we work in the crypto space, right? NFT or digital collectibles or internet art, as some people call it, are we just shilling a company's name and an economic industry like Ethereum or Tesos or Bitcoin with ordinals? Or the AI companies, for this matter, that give us these platforms? Or is it a new palette to paint with, right? Is it the metadata and the code that we use, is that the real palette? Or is it these .eth that I use, or these companies that end up being, because your question, what you touched on really made sense to me. Is it a trap? Is there a way around it? What do you think?
Well, I think there's a way around it. Well, first of all, there's problems in everything. The art market, the speculative art market for real art, you know, that is very problematic and creates a lot of the same problems, but in a different way. But the solution is, there are no good mediums and bad mediums. I mean, oil paint is toxic. Turpentine will kill you. And yeah, and so basically, the solution is if you can make art out of it. I mean, period. It's if you can make art out of it, which is the thing that moves people, makes them want to connect in some ways, then you're not shilling, because you made art, right? Yeah.
Thank you, and I would like to end this panel with celebrating Claudia Hart again, and I would like to share a quick anecdote. An artist duo named Operator and I were working on an NFT project, and it was about selling NFTs. I won't go into detail here, and we asked Claudia to contribute, and she said no, and we were like, why? And she was basically the only person saying no, and we were like, why? And we invited 100 artists, and Claudia Hart said no, and for us that was the most important artist we wanted to have, right? So we went back, why? And then she said no one would buy my NFT. And by the way, we were speaking about an NFT for $200. So that should not be too difficult to sell. And she was like, no. And then we really had to convince her. And a couple of years later, Claudia Hart is the second highest female artist on the Tezos blockchain. So,
well, I only did it because Operator bought the piece.
Yes, you could have left that part out.
What?
Yeah, we then convinced her by saying we buy the piece. But we could have easily sold it. But no, Claudia, I mean, that's the good thing about NFTs, right? Women artists often hadn't had such a big chance on the art market. Digital artists didn't have a chance. Also, Juliana said they never could really sell their work. And suddenly my students sold a lot of NFTs.
How much? How many?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't
What
check.
are you doing?
I think for like 20,000 Tezos or so something by now. So I think that's not too bad. So not wanting to shill any blockchain we work with. That's Tezos, by the way. But I think, and that's what I would like to end with, maybe it's an idea to look at that's the role of artists, right? To point out dangers for new technology that's why artists are always first, and that's why we can turn to artists and learn from them, but then also we can learn from them what the positive sides can be about technology, and NFTs make also a lot of things possible, same like AI, because now we have a fun AI student. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, Juliana, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Annika.
You can finally take it all.
What?
Thank you. Grab a drink, have some refreshments.
Just short, introduce myself, Ingeborg. I just made the interview with Kurt for my
Please have a drink there for free and just enjoy the museum and have a good Ars Electronica.